It happened so fast I still don't know if it was really an accident, or if I just wanted it too much to care. His lips were on mine before I even processed what was happening, warm, firm, familiar, but not. There was something different, something that made my entire body tense with shock and heat all at once. And the worst part? I didn't push him away. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was echoing in my ears. My hands were frozen mid-air, as if my body didn't know whether to stop him or pull him closer. His scent, similar to my husband's but subtly different, wrapped around me. It was disorienting, intoxicating. I knew it wasn't my husband. Somewhere deep inside my body knew. But the way his mouth moved against mine, the way he tilted his head just slightly, like he had been waiting for this moment, it ignited something inside me I had never felt before. It was reckless, dangerous, and God, it felt alive. When he finally pulled back, his breath hitched and his eyes, so much like my husband's but sharper, darker, held mine. Neither of us spoke. My lips tingled, my chest heaved, and I could still feel the heat of him, so close it was unbearable. I should have said something, anything. A protest, an apology, even anger. But my voice betrayed me. I just stared at him, my pulse thrumming wildly, my thoughts spinning out of control. And then he whispered, barely audible, almost as if confessing to himself rather than to me. I've wanted to do that for so long. My stomach dropped, because in that moment I realized this wasn't a mistake. This was everything he'd been waiting for. And the terrifying truth? Part of me had been waiting too. I've been married to Ryan for 3 years. We met in college, fell hard and fast, and for a while I thought he was everything I'd ever wanted. He's steady, reliable, safe. The kind of man who never forgets to take out the trash and always double-checks if I've locked the door. But somewhere along the way, that spark, the one that made me weak in the knees just looking at him, started to fade. Our life became a routine. Predictable dinners, quiet nights, the same small talk about work and bills. I told myself this was normal. That passion wasn't meant to last forever. And then there was Ethan, Ryan's twin brother. From the moment I met him, I noticed how different they were, despite looking so alike. Ethan was the kind of man who leaned a little too close when he talked to you. The kind who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He had this mischievous glint in his eyes, like he knew a secret you'd never guess. I'd always felt a tiny flicker of something around him. Something I buried so deep I convinced myself it wasn't real. After all, he was family. Off limits. But he noticed me. I could feel it in the way his eyes lingered just a second too long. The way his hand would brush against mine when he passed me a drink. The way his laugh got softer when it was just the two of us. I catch myself wondering, what if? What would it feel like if Ethan were the one I came home to at night? I hated myself for even thinking it. Still, every time we were in the same room, that tension hummed quietly between us, invisible but undeniable. Ryan never seemed to notice. To him, Ethan was just his fun, slightly reckless twin. But to me, Ethan was the piece of Ryan that had never been mine. That night, Ryan had gone upstairs early, tired from a long day. I stayed downstairs, scrolling aimlessly on my phone when Ethan came in, grinning that grin that always felt like trouble. We talked, laughed, drank a little too much wine. And when I turned to say goodnight, I saw it in his eyes. Something dangerous, something that made my chest tighten and my breath catch. And then he kissed me. I should have stopped him. But I didn't. After that kiss, everything felt different. Ethan didn't apologize. He didn't look ashamed or nervous. He just looked at me like he had finally done something he'd been dying to do for years. And now he was waiting to see if I'd let him do it again. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay next to Ryan, staring at the ceiling, still feeling Ethan's mouth on mine. My heart raced every time I replayed that moment. Every time I remembered the way his hand had brushed my arm as he pulled me closer. The next morning, when we all sat down for breakfast, I couldn't look at him. But I could feel his gaze on me, warm and heavy, like he was touching me without even lifting a finger. Ryan chatted casually, oblivious, while I tried not to let my hands shake as I sipped my coffee. And when Ethan's knee brushed mine under the table, so lightly it could have been accidental, I nearly jumped. I told myself to ignore it, to stop, but I didn't move my leg away. Every time I looked up, Ethan's eyes were already on me. And in those fleeting moments it felt like the world narrowed down to just the two of us, like Ryan wasn't even there. That day dragged on endlessly. I was hyper-aware of Ethan's presence, the way he seemed to always be near, always close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. When he reached past me to grab something from the counter, his hand brushed the small of my back, just for a second, but it was enough to send a rush of warmth through me so strong my knees nearly gave out. I kept telling myself, this is wrong. You're married. Stop this. But every part of me was craving the next accidental touch. It wasn't just attraction, it was the thrill, the forbidden pull. The way he made me feel wanted in a way I hadn't felt in years. And I could see it in his eyes every time he looked at me. He wanted me too. That night, when Ryan went out to grab something from the store, Ethan leaned against the doorway as I washed the dishes. You're quiet today, he said softly. I don't know what you're talking about, I muttered, staring at the sink. But when I finally looked up at him, his eyes told me everything. That kiss hadn't been the end. It had only been the beginning. Later that evening, Ryan fell asleep on the couch, half watching some late-night show. His head tilted back, mouth slightly open. Ethan and I were sitting across from each other at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll through our phones, neither of us saying much. The silence between us felt charged, heavy, almost suffocating. Every time I glanced up, Ethan's eyes were on me. Steady, unflinching, like he was daring me to look away first. Finally, he stood up, moving around the table slowly, deliberately. My breath caught as he stopped behind me, close enough that I could feel his warmth at my back. Do you ever wonder, he murmured, his voice low, almost dangerous, if you chose the wrong twin? My heart pounded so hard I thought he could hear it. I don't say that, I whispered, my hands tightening around my phone like it could anchor me to reality. But then I felt it. His fingers brushing lightly across my shoulder. Just a touch. Barely there. Yet it sent shivers racing through me like a live wire. You didn't answer, he said softly, his breath grazing the back of my neck. I closed my eyes. My whole body was on fire, torn between wanting to stand up and walk away, and wanting to lean back into him until there was no space left between us. Ethan, I whispered, my voice trembling. And then I heard Ryan stir in the living room. We both froze. The spell shattered instantly, leaving me breathless and shaken. Ethan pulled back, his face unreadable as he stepped away like nothing had happened. Good night, he said simply, his voice calm, as if he hadn't just set my entire body ablaze. I sat there for a long time after he left the room, staring at the empty doorway. Because deep down I knew, if Ryan hadn't woken up just then, I wouldn't have stopped him. The next night, Ryan went out to meet some friends for drinks. I told myself it would be fine, that I'd just stay in my room, avoid Ethan, and wait until Ryan came home. But Ethan didn't make that easy. He knocked lightly on my door, just 2 soft taps, like he already knew I wouldn't tell him to leave. Hey, he said, leaning against the frame, that familiar smirk playing on his lips. Ryan's out, huh? I swallowed hard. Yeah. You gonna hide from me all night? He asked, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. I'm not hiding, I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. He laughed softly, closing the door behind him. You've been avoiding me since that kiss. Don't think I haven't noticed. I stood there frozen, my pulse racing so hard it hurt. You kissed me, I managed to say, though my voice betrayed me, shaking slightly. And you didn't stop me, he replied simply, stepping closer. There it was. The truth laid bare between us. The space between us shrank with every step he took. I should have moved. I should have said no. But I didn't. You can't, I started, my words breaking apart as he stopped just inches away. His eyes locked on mine with an intensity that stole my breath. I've wanted you for years, he whispered, his voice low and raw. Do you have any idea how many times I've wished you'd look at me the way you look at him? Something inside me snapped. Some fragile barrier I'd been clinging to just shattered. He reached out slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. But when his fingers brushed mine, I didn't move. I couldn't. And when he leaned in, his forehead resting gently against mine, I felt my whole body tremble, not from fear, but from the unbearable need that had been growing between us for so long. I can't, I whispered weakly, even as my hands betrayed me, sliding up his chest, feeling the warmth beneath his shirt. Yes, you can, he murmured, his lips just a breath away from mine. And this time, I kissed him first. The moment our lips met, It was like every bit of tension that had been building between us exploded. Ethan kissed me like he'd been starving for me. Like he couldn't believe I was finally letting him have what he'd wanted for so long. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing my cheeks so gently it made my chest ache. I melted into him, my body pressed against his as if it had been waiting for this. For him all along. Every kiss grew deeper, slower, heavier until I felt dizzy with it. My fingers tangled in his shirt, desperate to feel him closer, to erase the space that still existed between us. He trailed soft, lingering kisses down my neck, and I felt my breath catch, my skin tingling with every touch. The way he moved, unhurried but so deliberate, made it clear he wasn't just kissing me, he was memorizing me. His hand slid down my arms, slow and reverent, until his fingers laced with mine. The warmth of his palms, the roughness of his skin, sent a rush of heat through me so intense I could barely think. I'd never felt this with Ryan. This hunger. This feeling of being completely wanted, completely seen. He pressed me gently against the wall, his lips finding mine again, deeper this time, as if he couldn't get enough. My whole body trembled against him, my heart pounding so violently it felt like it might burst. When his hands finally slipped to my waist, pulling me closer, my breath hitched. The world outside that room ceased to exist. There was only us, the sound of our shallow breaths, the heat of his skin, the way every kiss seemed to pull me further under, until I didn't care about consequences or rules or the fact that my husband was just a few miles away. I wanted Ethan, and in that moment I knew there was no going back. When it was over, I just stood there, my back against the wall, my chest still rising and falling too fast. Ethan rested his forehead against mine, his hands still holding my waist like he couldn't quite let me go. Reality crashed over me like cold water. I stepped back quickly, my heart pounding for a completely different reason now: fear, guilt, shock. What did we just do? I whispered, my voice shaking. Ethan's eyes searched mine, but he didn't look guilty. If anything, he looked relieved. Something we've both wanted for a long time, he said quietly, like it was the simplest truth in the world. I shook my head, running a trembling hand through my hair. No, this can't happen. I'm married. You're God, you're his brother. He stepped closer again, but slower this time, almost cautious. And yet you didn't stop me. You kissed me back. Tears stung at my eyes, partly from anger at him, but mostly from anger at myself. He was right. I hadn't stopped him. Not once. We can't ever talk about this, I said, forcing the words out, even as part of me ached at the thought of pretending none of this had happened. Ethan's jaw tightened. You think you can just forget it? Pretend it meant nothing? It has to mean nothing, I said, though my voice cracked on the words. He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes burning with something between frustration and longing. I've loved you since the day I met you, he said finally. And I've been waiting for this. For you, for years. My breath caught. I didn't know what to say, because deep down I knew part of me had been waiting too. And that terrified me more than anything. I couldn't look at him. I turned away, trying to steady my breathing, but every nerve in my body still hummed with the memory of him. His hands, his lips, the way he had made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. You don't understand, I whispered. I can't just destroy everything Ryan and I have. Ethan stepped closer, his voice calm, certain. You don't have to destroy anything. You already chose, even if you don't want to admit it. I spun around to face him, my chest tightening. No, this was a mistake. We can't. He cut me off, his expression dark but strangely vulnerable. Do you think I kissed you by accident that first night? He asked quietly. My stomach dropped. He took a step closer, his eyes locked on mine. I've been waiting for this moment. Waiting for you to realize you're mine as much as you're his. I knew one day you'd look at me differently. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. What are you saying? His lips curved into the faintest, most devastating smile. I kissed you because I knew you wouldn't stop me. And just as the weight of those words hit me, we both froze because behind us from the doorway a voice said my name. Ryan. He was standing there, silent, watching us, and the look on his face told me he'd heard everything.